Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing on organic evolution. The main concept is Lamarckism. Before going to Lamarckism, let's see what is the meaning of evolution and organic evolution. Evolution means change over time. Evolve means unfolding of character or outfolding of character as said by Dobzhansky. So evolution means changing over time. It might be probably gradual one. Organic evolution is the process by which changes in the genetic composition of population of organism occur in response to environmental changes. So when the environment change, to cope up with the changes, organism is induced or it is made to undergo certain changes. And when these changes are at the level of genes or genetic composition, it results in formation of a new character or a different character, and that's what organic evolution is. The definition is taken from encyclopedia. Now going to Lamarckian evolution, Lamarck, Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, who lived between 1744 to 1829, he began as a botanist and wound up as a zoologist. He recognized that the physical environment changes with the time. And so, he argued that the organism is obliged to undergo its way of living to survive. That means changing environment poses so many problems. To cope up with that, the organism has to undergo changes. It might be behavioral change or it might be physical or physiological change. Because a changed environment, in a changed environment, the animal may not be able to live if its biochemical reactions doesn't occur or they are hindered. Even though Lamarck at his time was not so clearly aware about all these changes, but based on his observations, basically physical changes, he gave certain ideas of evolution. They can be called as his principles. So what he says is that organisms as a whole or as well as their constituent parts like organs show a tendency to increase continually in size. And with changing environment, needs arise and in consequence new organs are brought into being. They are brought into the picture. That means changing needs are forcing organism to develop a different organ. And third principle can be called as organs that are in constant use become highly developed. On the other hand, disuse leads to degeneration. And last, organisms thus respond to changes in the environment by undergoing changes brought about by slow degrees in their bodily structures. Let's see them, let's try to understand these changes one by one by taking different examples. But before that, let's summarize. So any such a change that was brought due to the need, due to the changes, will be accumulated over a period of time. Not only that, it is passed to the next coming generations. When these changes, small changes, no matter what they are, when they are accumulated, they result in inheritance of such character over an extended period of time, resulting in the new species, you can say, resulting in evolution. And this view is referred as Lamarckism. Let me point out a specific sentence here. So what does actually Lamarckism mean? It means that when there is a change in environmental condition, the organism is bound to undergo change in one generation. And these changes are then passed to their next generations. See, be specific here. He doesn't say whether those changes are large or small. Irrespective of small or large changes, the change that has occurred in one generation due to the need will be passed on to the next generation. In this way, there will be accumulation of characters over the period of time due to the necessities. That is what we call as inheritance of acquired character. An organism acquires a character in one generation, passes it to the next generation. That is what inheritance is. and inheritance of these acquired characters over a period of time are going to result in evolution of an organism. And this is what Lamarckism is. Now we can understand it by taking example of a giraffe. The ancestors of modern giraffe, they were more like a deer with a proper proportion of a neck and shoulders as well as their legs. But what happened because of the increase in the increased number of giraffes who were like deers, there was a competition for leaves that were available in lower branches or on land. So, the need for food made them to stretch their neck and their shoulders, which resulted in slightly increase in the length. See, in the first principle, we said that as the time passes by, the organs enlarge, he says, and the need makes them to go for a next level. And that's how the giraffes, who were only feeding on the lower branches or the leaves that were available on land, now started stretching their neck, their forelegs, so that they could get food in a higher level. And that means there was a competition, and that competition resulted in some need, survival. Even though Lamarck doesn't give importance for survival and all, but somewhere he is saying that the need was there for the food, and that made them to stretch their neck and the leg. And now when this happened, in the next generation, this long neck and slightly longer leg, let's say medium-sized neck and medium-sized long forelegs, were then passed to the next generation. And again, in the next generation, the competition was there, the necessity for food was there. So what happened? Now, the medium level leaves were again used up by all the giraffe that were surviving in that area. And in the next level, there was a need that they further needed to stretch their necks and leg so that they could get the food, leaves which were in a higher height. Again, that slowly increased generation after generation. Remember, in every generation, as soon as the animal was trying to capture the food or take the leaves from the branches, there were small changes, and all these changes were passed from generation to generation. As you can see in the picture here, these were somewhat original necked ancestors. Then there was a necessity of food, and the proportion of neck increased here in one generation, and they kept on increasing their neck. Okay, and with the neck they were also using their forelegs. This is how the neck of giraffe increased considerably in length, and even the shoulders. So according to the necessities, they use their neck more and more, and that resulted in long neck of these giraffes. But please make sure that even though we are saying about the shoulders were powerful, but one thing you have to observe it carefully: the forelegs, even though they were stronger, but they were proportionate. It was not much change in their forelegs. It is actually a kind of optical illusion which makes you feel that the forelegs are also long, but forelegs are much stronger compared to the ancestral ones. So, what actually made the animal to undergo those changes? It is tendency towards perfection. That is one of his point. Lamarck says that the animal always want to try to be perfect one. As we humans, we try to perfect ourselves in our personalities. See, the animals are also trying to be perfect in their body parts, in their appearances. And that perfection is towards the need, necessities, you can say. So tendency towards perfection is one of the principle, can be called as one of the principle of Lamarck. An example is giraffe neck. There is also one more thing, one more principle, use and disuse. You can also take the example of giraffe neck for use. Giraffe used its neck more and more and more, and that evolved much better compared to the rest of its body parts. You can also take the example of birds using forearms. Like there was a necessity of flying, and the bird, the reptilians, because of the competition that was existing in a particular time, they had to undergo certain changes. They had to move from there. They had to change their habits and the habitats. So that necessity made them to use their forewings more and more, and that resulted in formation of wing, which was totally different from rest of the reptilia. So that was a need that made them to use their organs more and more, resulted in the formation of wings. You can also see that there are a number of examples can be taken for disuses, which will be discussed in the next slide. Either the tendency towards perfection in case of giraffe neck, or use of organs in case of birds, all these changes have been passed to the next generation, inherited those acquired traits, and the inheritance of these acquired traits resulted in evolution. That is what Lamarckism is. Simply, the Lamarckism is called inheritance of acquired character. We were talking about use and disuse, that is one of his laws. He proposed that if the organ is used a lot, it will develop and strengthen, tendency towards perfection, and if it is not used, it will atrophy, that means it will be degenerated. And he called this as the law of use and disuse. So we are all mixing up. At the end, I can go for summarizing his theory, but now I'll just go on with my slides. So he called this law as the law of use and disuse. We'll be seeing one by one the best classical examples that can be taken in case of disuse are the vestigial organs which we find. There are certain organs in our own body that are not used anymore. So any organ that is non-functional in our body is called as a vestigial organ, and we see a lot of them. At least minimum 10 different such vestigial organs are found in humans. One of them is a plica semilunaris, which you find here. They are very prominent in other organisms, but in humans we no longer use them. So they have become almost small, very small, hardly visible in most of the cases. And the other one is the coccyx, that is the tail vertebrae that we see. We all know that mammals have tail, but apes, humans, do not have tail. The reason for this is the tailbone is fused, and the fused tailbone is called as coccyx. This is no longer used. So as soon as humans, they started, at least ancestral forms of human, they tried bipedal locomotion. Bipedal locomotion is where we use our only two limbs for walking. Remember, rest of the mammals are quadrupedal. That means they use their forelegs, all four legs for walking, for movement, for locomotion. But humans and human-like, mammals, apes, we hardly use our forelimbs for locomotion. We use our hind limbs for locomotion. Such a locomotion is called as bipedal locomotion. And as soon as there was a transition from quadrupedal locomotion to bipedal locomotion, the tail was no longer used. The purpose of tail was it was used as a balancer in case of quadrupedal locomotion. But when we started standing straight, erect type of locomotion, both the four hind limbs were able to balance the body. There was no necessity of an additional balancer. So the usage of tail reduced over a period of time, and it happened so that the length of the tail decreased considerably, and it almost got fused with the rest of the vertebrae. Now we call it as a coccyx. So coccyx is one such example for a vestigial organ, one such example for an organ in disuse that has not been used. It reduced in its size. Remember, he says if the animal uses the particular organ more and more, it becomes stronger and more stable. For example, the neck of a giraffe or the forelimbs of birds. And he also says that if the a particular organ is not used, then over a period of time, it becomes shorter, smaller and smaller, and it becomes a waste, a vestigial organ. So coccyx is one such example. The next example which can be taken in case of human being is appendix in humans. So somewhere here you can see what we call as a vermiform appendix. Appendix was used, it is still in use in case of herbivorous animals, where the bacteria is present in them help in digestion of cellulose. As soon as our food transition took place from the herbivorous type to the boiled, cooked and soft food, when we started depending upon cooked food, not only that, we started depending upon food of animal sources rather than more of plant sources. The use of this part of the intestine reduced, and now the present humans, we don't have any function of appendix. It is present as just in the form of a small, you can say a tube or like a worm it is. So it is no longer used in digestion, as we have, since we have changed our food habit. We have seen a transition from herbivorous to omnivorous type of food, where our carbohydrate source is basically glycogen or starch rather than cellulose. This organ has become a vestigial one. Again, an example, a classic example for organ in disuse. Lamarck's evidences are so prominent that it was very hard to disapprove his concept of evolution. We can also take other example in animals like internal hind limbs of whales, where whales no longer use their hind limbs, and even the internal legs of some species of snakes. The comparative anatomy of all these organs they resemble to those which were much more developed with a particular function in other species. Now you can see in the picture, the present day snakes no longer use their legs, and this is because of their creeping habit. The snakes, you might have observed, they creep. They use their body to move forward, and since they were using small burrows and all, where the leg was basically of no use, they started using their body, and the body, which was more cylindrical, elongated and cylindrical, could be easily passed through small burrows, and the leg were of no use, and actually they were hindering their movement, and slowly, gradually, the animal more dependent on its whole body rather than the leg, and that it became a rudiment. So you see them as a rudiment fused parts in their skeletal system, and modern day snakes no longer use their legs. So this is one more example in animal where a disuse of an organism disuse of an organ resulted in organ becoming smaller and smaller and almost disappearing. That means these changes, remember, they were happening slowly, and generation after generation, these characters got accumulated and resulted in evolution of present day snakes. We can also see such example in aquatic birds like these ducks and geese, where you see that their wings are smaller and their legs have webbed feet. These were developed, and some of them have become useless because of the changing the habits and the habitats. So when these kind of birds were living on land, especially when they started the aquatic mode of life, they were they were not in need of their wings. So they stopped flying. That means they stopped using their wings. Instead, they started using their legs for wading, and that made the necessity of developing certain special structures in their legs, what we call as webbed feet. And these webbed feet help them in swimming. So there was one organ that was developing more, and there was another organ which was becoming useless day by day. And these characters were passed to the generations, and that's how we see the present day ducks, which hardly can fly because their wings are useless, but are good swimmers because they have webbed feet. So this can also be taken as an example for use and disuse and as evidence for Lamarck's theories. Now, how significant Lamarck's theory is? Because Lamarck was able to explain his concept with proper evidences. For use and disuse, he gives the example of giraffe, and even this concept cannot be denied by Darwin and rest of the people. He was giving some comprehensive ideas about evolution for the first time actually, and then it also he had lots of evidences in the form of snakes, in the form of birds, aquatic birds and all, particularly the vestigial organs which can be seen in case of humans. So he was able to provide certain evidences for his theory. And also it also stressed that adaptation to the environment is a primary product of evolution. So he says that it is the evolution that is actually happening because of the change in environment. So in this way his laws or theories of evolution are highly significant. First significance is that this is the first concept where there was some basic idea about evolution. We can take the example of Reddy or other experiments. They were trying to say that the evolution is, origin of organisms are taking place by different means. And the actual concept of evolution was provided with the proof by Lamarck. That way, Lamarck's theory is highly significant. And why he failed? Fail is because he was not aware about the inheritance of the traits. He thought that the inheritance of character were basically because of physical changes. Maybe he was unable to explain it since the concept of gene was not actually thought at that time when he was telling about the inheritance of acquired character. So usually since the concept of gene was totally unaware to him, he was unable to explain exactly why those changes are transferred from generation to generation. Genes are not changed by activities in life. Just by changing the activities in life, the gene doesn't change. Just because you stretch your neck for some time, those changes doesn't happen in genes. And genes to change through mutation occur before an organism is born. So, when he was explaining, for him only visible traits were, whatever he could see physically, he could explain. He saw that the animal was stretching its neck, so he thought that just by stretching the neck, the character is going to be passed to the next generation. As we said earlier, the concept of gene and change in genetic composition or at the germplasm level was totally unheard at that time. So that was most basic drawback of his explanation. And then there were other experiments done when Lamarck was to just check his theories. One of the example can be of Weismann, where he worked on rats for nearly 20 generations to see if the tail size will vary. What he did in his experiment was that he took one generation of rats, and in one generation he had cut the tail and then he allowed to breed, and he tried to measure the length of the tail in the next generation. And same thing was done for number of generations, almost for 20 generations, and he found that there was no change in the tail length in all these 20 generations. One character was acquired in one generation is not passed to the next generation at all. One more classic example to disprove the theory of inheritance of character, acquired character, is there are certain tribes in China where they use rings to increase the length of the neck. And every generation they keep on adding the number of rings to increase the length of the neck. But it has not changed in all these hundreds of years. That means even though parent are possessing a long neck because of certain adaptation, certain inductions, it is not passed to the next generation. We see the bodybuilders; they build their body, use and use and use their muscles. But the newborn child will not be born with strong muscles. They'll have to once again train their body. So that means any such change that happens on the body may not be passed to the next generation. Physical changes I'm talking about. So that was actually the failure of Lamarck. But whatever it is, his theory was the first one to focus, to put focus on organic evolution or put focus on biological evolution. But failure is because of lack of information, I can say. So that is all about the Lamarckism. To summarize his theory, Lamarck basically explains about the evolution, how evolution take place. So he considers that as the environment changes, animal is bound to either use or disuse its organs. So organ that is used more and more is going to become stronger and stronger. The organ that is not used will become weaker and weaker, and then it might degenerate. So any such a change that has been acquired in one generation is going to be passed to the next generation. That is what we call as inheritance of acquired character. And inherited characters, acquired character when inherited in the next generation are going to change certain things in the next generation, and that will result in formation of a new organism. That is what leads to evolution, and that can be called as theory of inheritance of acquired character, or simply Lamarckism. That is all for today. Thank you.